Hello, my name is Yamara Angel, and I am the Strategy Manager for Post-Secondary Access here at Alabama Possible. And welcome to our Cash for College Advanced FAFSA for Beginners. We would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Because of their support, we're able to provide trainings for free. We would also like to thank our partners from the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, the Alabama Community College System, the Alabama State Department of Education, and the Get Educated, which is the common Black college application. Some housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times. Please disable any AI note takers unless accommodations are needed. Please let us know by sending us a message. This webinar is recorded and posted to our youtube.com/Alabama Possible within the next about 2 days. You can always choose to revisit the YouTube recordings at any time you choose. Submit your questions in the chat and we will answer them throughout and towards the end of the webinar. And finally, we value everyone's feedback, but it is especially important for high school educators seeking professional development credit to stay until the very end and answer those final set of poll questions to receive full credit. If you post your college-going efforts on social media, tag us at AL Goes to College, and don't forget to use the following hashtags. For those who are unfamiliar with the Alabama Goes to College campaign, there are 3 main components to the campaign. First is the Cash for College goal. And the goal is for every graduating senior to complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, before they graduate from high school so that they can access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for their education after high school. Second is the Alabama College Application Week, which is part of a national effort designed to help high school seniors, especially first generation and low income students, to navigate the college application process and apply to at least one post-secondary institution. And then third, the College and Career Decision Day, which is a celebration to students committing to pursue their education, credentials, pursue a skilled trade, or join the military after high school. So our agenda for today, we will review FAFSA steps. We will describe eligibility for students. We will try to understand the personal circumstances, and we'll break some of those definitions down for you all. We will determine parent information to report in complex living situations. We will review contributor section, and then we will discuss some FAFSA completion resources. So May, if you will help launch some poll questions. So it's the first question is, did you attend or watch our FAFSA 101 webinar?
Y'all should see that on your screen now. I'm going to give it a few more seconds for everyone to respond. If you didn't have a chance to catch it, it is available on YouTube. And then we're also going to recap a little bit of what we covered in that. But today is really going to go deeper into some of the definitions and then also get further along in the steps with the FAFSA. So it looks like everyone's responded. Thank you so much. For the 6 of y'all who didn't have a chance to catch it, definitely feel free to revisit that on YouTube. Launching our next poll question now. So, does your school or your district admin provide specific instructions for documenting FAFSA completion and FAFSA opt-out waivers? We have the opportunity to hear from educators all across the state, and through a project we did this summer, we heard a lot of differences in how educators are instructed to put this information into PowerSchool or to document physical copies of paperwork. So we're just interested in learning what it looks like in your district, and we'll have a chance to hear from a PowerSchool coach a little bit later today about some ways to account for this graduation requirement in PowerSchool. So it looks like 79% of y'all are getting specific instructions from your school or district. So thank you for responding to that.
Thank you, May. So we will do a quick review of the steps to complete the FAFSA. So step 1 is to create an FSA ID. Step 2, gather documents. Both of these should be done in advance, especially like if you're hosting FAFSA events. We do have a how to create an FSA ID guide and checklist in our educators toolkit. Then we have step 3, which is where the student fills out their section of the application. Step 4, contributors complete their section if applicable. Step 5, review FAFSA submission summary. Step 6, complete verification if applicable. And step 7, receive and accept financial aid offers. We will dive in a little bit deeper into steps 3 and 4 today. We will have our navigating financial aid for immigrant families and next steps for after FAFSA, which will dive a little bit deeper more into steps 4 to 7. So what is an FSAID? Just a recap of what it is. A FSAID is a username and password for accessing your federal student aid account. An FSAID is required to start the FAFSA form for both the student and the contributor. The good thing about FSAIDs now is that it's now real-time matched through the Social Security Administration. So there is no more waiting for authentication if FSAIDs and Social Security numbers match. So that is very important for students and families to know. A verified email is required. Make sure that students and their families use personal emails that do not share email addresses or use a temporary work or school email address when creating these FSAIDs. So who needs an FSAID? Independent students, so students that are on their own, like reporting their own financial information. So students, and if they're married, they will also need their spouse. If they're married and not filing taxes together, their spouse will also need an FSAID. Dependent student, so the student and their parent, it is important to remember that only biological or adoptive parent is considered a contributor for the FAFSA. So the parent that creates an FSAID and reports their information will depend on several factors. You can always use the parent wizard tool before instructing a family member to create an FSA, just to make it easier for them to know who would be the contributor on their FAFSA. Who is eligible for federal aid? To be fully eligible for federal aid, a student must have completed a high school diploma or GED certificate, complete an approved homeschool education, or meet one of the ability to benefit alternatives, be a US citizen or eligible non-citizen, and we'll discuss a little bit more on eligible non-citizen along the presentation. Have a valid Social Security number, with the exception of students from the Republic of Marshall Islands, the federal state of Micronesia, and the Republic of Palau. Be enrolled and accepted as a regular student in a eligible degree or certificate program. Students must maintain satisfactory academic progress in college. Students and their families must provide consent and approval to have federal tax information transferred directly into the FAFSA. And by families, I mean if the student is required to have a contributor on the application, and then sign certifying statements on the FAFSA. Let's just we're going to go into sections of the application, and we're going to start off with the personal circumstances. So the personal circumstances section determines if a student is a dependent student. So this is a student who will need to provide parent information, or an independent student which is a student who does not need to provide parent information. When answering these questions in the section, a student should carefully review the definitions of the terms to see whether it applies to their situation. The student is asked if any of the listed personal circumstances applies to them. So some of the questions that they will be asked is the student currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purpose other than the training? The student is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces. The student has children or other people, excluding their spouse, who lives with them and receives more than half of their support from the student now and between July 1st, 2026 and June 30th of 2027. Anytime since the student turned 13, they were an orphan. meaning they're not living but with a biological or adoptive parent. At any time since the student turned 13, they were a ward of court. At any time since the student turned 13, they were in foster care. The student is or was a legally emancipated minor as determined by the court by the state of resident. The student is or was a legal in a legal guardianship with someone other than their parent, step parent, as determined by the court in the state of their residence. And then they have the option to click none of these apply. So just a emphasis on the legal guardianship question, which is the student is or was in a legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step parent as determined by the court in their state of residence. It is important to remember that for the FAFSA, a student under legal guardianship, a student will be independent, which is different from legal custody. So if a student is under legal custody, a student will be a dependent student, and will need to report their legal guardian's information on the FAFSA. So just a little breakdown on the definitions between both legal guardianship and legal custody. So legal guardianship is designed by a court that authorizes someone to care for an individual in place or absence of parent. Having a legal guardianship qualifies a student as an independent student who does not need to report parent information on the FAFSA. Versus a legal custody, if the court has awarded legal custody but not a legal guardianship, the student is not considered independent for the FAFSA purposes and must provide parents' information. So making sure that, the definitions and the court papers, have a different, like the definitions on the court papers, making sure that that matches with what the student puts on the FAFSA is very important because that determines a dependency status of the student. So we would also have a dependency status link attached to our follow-up email to kind of help you determine more on this. Student homelessness. So this question asks if the student is asked if they are unaccompanied and homeless or at risk of being homeless. So if the student is experiencing homelessness with a family, they will select no to this question because the question is asking if the student is unaccompanied and homeless. Or at risk of being homeless for this question. So a breakdown of the definition from homeless and unaccompanied. So homeless means lacking fixed, regular, and inadequate housing. You may be homeless if the student is living in shelters, parks, motels, hotels, public spaces, camping grounds, cars, abandoned buildings, or if they're temporarily living with other people because they have nowhere else to go. It may also mean if they're living in any situations or fleeing any abusive parents, they may be considered homeless, and even if the parent would otherwise provide a place to live. Unaccompanied means that the student is not living in physical custody with their parent or guardian. There will also be more resources from the Schoolhouse Connection attached to your follow-up email for this definition. If the student selects yes, they will also be asked if a specific program determines the student as homeless. So the student will select which one can attest for the student being homeless. One of the answer choices is the student's high school or school district homeless liaison or designee. I believe in some schools it might be also the McKinley-Vento liaison. They can also attest for a student being homeless. The only time that a dependent student does not have to provide parent information is if the student has unusual circumstances. Unusual circumstances allow dependent students to receive a provisional student aid index without providing parental information. The student will have to follow up with the colleges where they have applied to provide documentation. So this can include interviews, phone calls, provide court documents to prove that they cannot get parent information. Under student unusual circumstances, a student may be experiencing unusual circumstances if they have left home due to an abusive or threatening environment, are abandoned or by or estranged from their parents, have refugee or isolated status and are separated from their parents, or their parents are displaced in a foreign country, are a victim of human trafficking, are incarcerated, or their parents are incarcerated and contact with the parents would pose a risk to the student, or otherwise unable to contact or locate their parents. The student is asked if certain circumstances prevent them from providing parent information. So the student answers yes, they will be provisionally independent and they should contact their college's financial aid office. Student indicating that they have unusual circumstances, making them a provisional independent student on the FAFSA form. The student can submit the FAFSA form without parent information, but it is also important to keep in mind that if a parent are unwilling to provide their information and the student does not have an unusual circumstance, that prevents the student from that prevents the students from contacting their parent or obtaining their information. Students may be considered for a limited amount of direct unsubsidized loans only, and their student aid index won't be calculated without parental information. So it is very important to keep that in mind. So this question, it indicates the student is determined to be independent and must provide parent information. So the student can indicate that the parents refuse to provide information. In this case, the student will only be determined for direct unsubsidized loans only. So selecting yes to this question should only be used sparingly as possible, as it only allows students to receive unsubsidized loans. So student demographics. Students are asked about their citizenship status. So students will be asked if they're U.S. citizens, eligible non-citizen, or neither U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. So U.S. citizen, U.S. national, and eligible non-citizens are the only eligible to receive federal student aid for FAFSA. So when students are making the selection out of like the three options, option one, where they indicate that the student is a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national, they will proceed forward with the application as normal. For option two, students, if the student indicates that they are eligible non-citizen, it will prompt the student to provide an A number, which is the alien registration number. And then option three, it would indicate the student if they are not a citizen or eligible non-citizen to proceed forward with limited aid options. The student should contact the financial aid office of the college after submitting. So for option one, who selects this option? U.S. citizens, so this is a person with the exception of the children of foreign diplomatic staff who are born in the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and in most cases, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands. So this is persons born abroad to parents or a parent of those who are citizens. And those who are also born in another country but have become U.S. citizen. U.S. nationals are natives of American Samoa or Swans Islands. If a student is not a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national, they are eligible and they are an eligible non-citizen. They can provide other documentation such as the green card, which is a permanent resident, so forms I-551, I-151, or I-51C. Their arrival departure records, so I-94, which is a refugee, asylee or parolee status, T visa or parent with a T1 visa who are victims of human trafficking, battered immigrant status, so WAMA, victims of abuse, citizenship of the federal states of Micronesia, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau, and then status under the Jade Treaty, which is the Canadian-born Native Americans. So eligible non-citizens will enter their A number in the box that's indicated on the picture. If a student is not a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or eligible non-citizen, they are not eligible for federal student aid. So this includes students who have been granted the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is DACA, a F1 or F2 visa, student visa, a J1 or J2 exchange visitor visa, a G series visa, which pertains to international organizations, or no protected status, which is undocumented students. So undocumented students should not fill out the FAFSA form and should be indicated to sign a waiver for graduation requirements. So if a student you are working with on filling out the FAFSA has been granted the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is also known as DACA. They are not eligible for federal aid. However, some DACA recipients have Social Security numbers and might complete the FAFSA to determine eligibility for other institutional aid or state aid if they're eligible in different states. So we're gonna dive into student financials. This Students are asked about their tax filing status. Students can determine if they have a tax filing requirement by reviewing Table 1-2 on page 9 of the IRS Publication 17. Students sometimes may ask if they have to report their earnings because they have started working this year. You can always explain that earnings in 2025 and if they file taxes, they will end up reporting that in their future FAFSA form. So there's a lot of questions. Those are often some questions that students may ask when they're filing this FAFSA and they come to this question. So just a recap on the direct data exchange. So the direct data exchange transfers an individual federal tax information from the Internal Revenue Service to the Department of Education. The student, along with their contributor, must provide consent and approval for the system to check for any tax records. So transferred information will not be seen anywhere on the front end of the form. Without consent, the FAFSA is considered incomplete, and a student will be ineligible for federal aid. The FAFSA uses prior year tax information, meaning taxes from 2 years before the year that the aid is received. So for the 2026 to 2027 FAFSA, they will use the 2024 tax return filed in 2025. We still recommend, although the direct data exchange will most likely transfer this information from the IRS to the Department of Education, we still recommend families to have access to their tax forms and supporting documents for reference for certain additional questions that they may encounter on the application. And you will also learn that undocumented parents will also need access to their tax form because they will have to manually input this information onto the parent portion of their application. So if the direct data exchange doesn't automatically transfer tax information, the student will be asked about their taxes, income, and other financial information. The student enters dollar amounts in the responses, and the questions are really similar to parents, especially those undocumented parents that have to manually input their information. So students will be asked about their assets. So they will be asked current total of cash, savings, and checking accounts. They will also be asked current net worth of investments, including real estate, and current net worth of businesses and farms. So moving along to the contributor invite section, the student is asked to enter their parent's email address to invite the parent to the FAFSA. A dependent student should only invite the parent indicated by the FAFSA. So when the student invites their parents to contribute, they will only need an email address. The email address does not have to be an email address that the contributor used when creating their FSA ID. It can be whatever email that is most used by the parent. The invitation will generate a 7-digit code, which a contributor will use to access the application. The 7-digit code will be emailed to both the student and the email address used on the parent contributor invitation. The student has the option to copy a special invite link. So the code can also be found in the student's dashboard. So just to get some scenarios in, let's type it in the chat, your answers. So for scenario one, Tobin's parents are separated. Tobin's mother contributed majority of financial support. So Tobin's father claimed her on his 2024 taxes. Tobin is considered a dependent for the purposes of FAFSA. Whose information should she report on the FAFSA? Tobin's should report her mother's information on the FAFSA since she provided majority of Tobin's support. So it doesn't matter that Tobin's father claimed her on his 2024 tax return. Tax dependency is not the same as FAFSA dependency. So if her mother ever gets remarried, Tobin should also report her stepfather's or step-parents' information on the FAFSA.
Hey,
So yeah.
Siamara, I was wondering, since we got such a wide response in the chat, I was wondering if we could just quickly look at the parent wizard tool for that one. I have it pulled up. Yeah, that's just a great example and a very common misconception that we see all the time, working with the FAFSA. So if we use our parent wizard tool, and we are first asked to put the name of the student's legal parents. So, like Ciamara was mentioning, with the legal parents, we're only looking at biological or adoptive parents. So, we're just going to put mom and dad and press continue. And so, are they married to each other? No, they're separated. Do they live together? No. And then it asks which parent has provided more financial support for the student over the past 12 months. So in this scenario, we were told that Tobin's mom provides more financial support. So regardless of the dad claiming Tobin on federal income taxes, we're answering for mom here. And at this point, I don't think mom has remarried. So when we answer all those questions, the student's FAFSA parent is the mom. So again, does not matter if the father is claiming Tobin on income taxes. The FAFSA cares about which parent is providing more financial support. So highly recommend using the Parent Wizard tool prior to a student even beginning their application, definitely before they invite a parent to their FAFSA. It's just a really useful tool. So I'll stop sharing now. And I will drop a link to the wizard tool in the chat. I just saw your question.
Risha hasn't lived with her parents since 2015. She lives with her grandmother, who is her legal guardian and has not adopted her. Whose information should she report on the FAFSA? And feel free to send those responses in the chat. So in this case, Risha doesn't report anyone's information but her own. Risha is considered independent for the purposes of the FAFSA since she can click on the box on to the questions about legal guardianship. Legal guardianship indicates that the student will be independent for purposes of the FAFSA. Legal custody, she does have to report or the legal guardian's tax information. So we'll just jump into the signature page. So thank y'all for sending your responses. After agreeing to the terms and conditions and signing, the student can submit their section. So for dependent students, parent information has to be provided for the FAFSA to be considered complete and then processed. So making sure that the student signs their forms. I've seen where students sometimes may stop at this section and then forget to sign it. So make sure students do sign the form. A dependent student is reminded that their FAFSA isn't complete and can't be submitted until the parent completes their contributor section of the form and signs it. This page will also display next steps for the students to take, and it includes tracking and managing their form. So the contributor, when a student invites their parent to contribute to their FAFSA form, their parent will log in into their own FSA ID to complete their section. The parent will receive an email, and the screenshots show kind of like what it looks like. The invited parent will open the FAFSA invitation from their email. They will click accept invitation and will be taken to studentaid.gov. So the parent is taken to their from their email to the login page to enter their credentials. So making sure that the parents enter their own and not their students. To access the FAFSA form, all users are required to have an FSA ID. And again, just reminding parents that they will need to have their own login and not use their students' login to complete their form. After logging in, the parent is taken to accept the 26 to 27 FAFSA invitation page. The parent sees an invitation code box to be the contributors on the student's FAFSA. So this box may be automatically pre-filled with the code if the parent uses the link. So the parent answers similar questions to the students, but some additional questions that they may be asked would be any federal benefits received, family size, number in college, and annual child support received. This page will ask the parent if the parent or anyone in the parent's family has received the following federal benefits during 2024 or 2025. So making sure that they know that if the parent or anyone in the parent's family have received any of the benefits. This page asks if the family size differs from what is on the 2024 tax return. The parent has the option to enter the number of children or other dependents who live with the parent and will receive more than half of their support from the parent between July 1st of 2026 and June 30th of 2027. Then the parents will be asked how many people in the family will be in college between July 1st of 2026 and June 30th of 2027. They should not include the parents in this question. The direct data exchange also transfers parents' federal income information from the Internal Revenue Service to the Department of Education. But because the direct data exchange does not transfer tax information for parents who are undocumented, they will have to manually input their tax information. If a undocumented parent does not file taxes, they will have to select that they did not file taxes, select the reason why, and they will enter income. It is important to remember that there is a chance that these students may only qualify for direct unsubsidized loans depending on the option that they choose as the reason why they didn't file taxes. So if you join us for our Cash for College Navigating Financial Aid for Immigrant Families, we can discuss a little more on the situation. Parents are asked about their taxes, income, and other financial information. Parents should enter dollar amounts in their responses. So these are the questions asked to be entered by undocumented parents. There is guidance on how to find amounts in the italicized under the questions as shown on the screen. There is also some guidance on how to find these questions. Let me just let me see if I could put it in the chat. But there is some guidance on how to find these questions on student aid, and it'll give how to find it on their tax forms and how to find them or like what the questions are asking. So this page asks the parent about annual child support received for the last complete calendar year and the parent's current assets. For more information on assets and their definitions, you can read the notes on page 23. So we will follow up with this PowerPoint at the end with a follow-up email. So you'll get access to this link as well. Parents are also asked to provide information about their spouse or partner. For this example, the other parent does not need to contribute to the student's FAFSA because the parents are filing taxes jointly. After providing the other parent's date of birth, all required parent information will be complete. If another parent needs to contribute to the application, parent will be indicated to enter the other parent's email address, and they will send an email similar to the student's inviting to the parent's email. So on this page, the parent acknowledges the terms and conditions and signs their section. Since all required sections are completed, the parents can both sign and submit the student's FAFSA form since the student started the form. So once they sign this, it means that the application will be completed and it'll be sent over to get processed. So after submitting the student's FAFSA, the parent is shown an abbreviated confirmation page as shown on the screen. The student will receive an email with full detailed confirmation that the student in the parent section completed and signed. So after that, the FAFSA form is now considered complete and signed and submitted for processing. Pass it over to May.
While we wait for our guest presenter, I'm going to go ahead and share a few of my slides. If you joined us for our FAFSA summit or for our FAFSA 101 webinar, you might have already seen this, but essentially, when you are in the compliance section of PowerSchool, and I'm sorry if I don't use the perfect terminology for this, PowerSchool is definitely not my area of expertise, but when you're in the AL custom section, this is where you can document the student's status. So there are three options. F01 for no waiver. That's essentially indicating that the student has no intention to complete a waiver and that they will, in fact, complete a FAFSA. And then the other two options are our two waiver options. So F02 for our parent waiver and F03 for our district waiver. You might receive instructions from your particular district telling you to do one or the other. So I just wanted to reassure folks that regardless of which waiver is chosen, they will both fulfill the purpose of meeting the graduation requirement. But I do see that our PowerSchool coach has joined us, so I am now going to stop sharing and I will turn it over to Quandria Robinson.
All right. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Quandria Robinson, one of the state's Power School coaches, and I'm excited about being here with you all. I want to thank you all for what you do each day for our students across the state. But our topic today is to talk a little bit about the FAFSA, making sure we're getting those waivers, encouraging our students to, or shouldn't say our students, but our parents to complete that FAFSA each year. So what I have for you now, this is the Power School Alabama Edition website, and you're probably familiar with this website. We have a page that's dedicated to updating student information, student data. And this is the page here, updating student data. On this page, what you will find, I'm going to come down just a little bit. These are the directions on how we enter in the FAFSA waiver for our students. There's also some other information that um, may prescribe to you, and that's the entering of the graduation exit type for our seniors, updating those CCR boxes. Also, there's some information about the graduation pathway. But these are all of the steps here. Not only can we enter this information for our students, just an individual student, but we can also complete these processes in mass. But all of these documents, they're located here on the Power School Alabama Edition website. Okay. So when we talk about those FAFSA waivers, understand we're entering in that information on our students' AL custom page. We're over on that custom page. So you have three options, and something should always be inside of those boxes. So if our students or our parents, if they complete that FAFSA, there will be the option of, no waiver, meaning they completed everything as asked. If there was a district waiver, there's a district waiver option. There's also a parent waiver option if the parent has completed the waiver. So another question that I get with the FAFSA information is, where do we store? Is that little document, it's like a completion form that the students can print off? It's going to be up to you in your district whether you file that away physically. Okay. There's also an option of storing it inside of Power School. It's an attachment option. So it's going to be up to you and your district as to how you want to file those forms away. Most of our districts across the state, they're just physically filing those forms away. Okay. Keep in mind whether the student has no waiver, parent waiver, or the district waiver, that information can be input into Power School individually or in mass. And this is the document here, entering FAFSA waiver for students. That little document is a 3-page document. It will tell you how you can do this either in mass or individually. Okay.
I was wondering if you already touched on it a little bit, but maybe go into depth about why the student's graduation date matters and like how that could impact things for educators. I don't know if you said withdrawal date as well, but graduation date in particular.
Right. Now, with our students, we do have some students that do like a mid-year graduation. They may complete everything, maybe before Christmas, right after Christmas. But a majority of our students, they're going to do a traditional graduation, which may be, a May, early June, right? So one of the documents that I shared here on that Alabama Power School page was the graduation exit type. So with that exit type, you're listing what type of diploma that student earned and then the date. So that date is going to be important. You do want to make sure if you do have those mid-year graduates that their information is uploaded. And when I say their information, did they have a waiver? Did they complete the FAFSA? You want to make sure that information is correct. All of it is located there on that AL custom page. For our traditional student graduates, May, early June, you're going to complete that same process and you're going to put that day after the last day as their graduation date. Okay. Same thing for mid-year. It's always the day after the last day. Okay.
Okay.
Day after the last day is that graduation day.
Some folks might not know if they're troubleshooting issues in Power School.
Mhm.
They have a particular point of contact with the Power School coaches to reach out to.
Yes. What you can do, I'm going to post, look in the chat box. If you do have any issues with, the uploading process, maybe you need some additional permissions to upload everything in mass when it comes to whether it's graduation exit date or FAFSA information, feel free to reach out to myself. Let me put my email here in the box. Also, what we do, many of you all probably receive those emails from Stacy Royster each Monday morning. Is that true for some of you all? You get those emails? My contact information and also the information of the other coaches are located there. We do offer throughout the month different virtual professional development classes. And those classes, like I said, they're all virtual. They also last about 1 hour. Sometimes they run a little less than an hour. But what we do, we set the classes based upon what's going on that time of year. So with graduation, making sure we're graduating our seniors correctly, marking their graduation exit type, their FAFSA, we usually start doing those courses around April, entire month of May. How to store grades, we do those every 9 weeks. So it's just based upon what's going on that type of or that time of year. But any questions that you may have, troubleshooting, maybe something is not updating correctly, you can, reach out to me. That's my email.
I appreciate you, Quandria, for joining us and providing that resource in the chat box. We'll also share it in our follow-up email as well so that folks can have the link to that web page.
All
Thank you.
right. You all are so welcome. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you all for listening to me these little few minutes.
Of course.
But any questions that you may have, there's my email and there is my number. That's my direct cell number to reach me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll just go ahead and share some resources that you can use for FAFSA. We do have our Cash for College toolkit. So you can go to alabamapossible.org/educators-toolkit. We will also send that link to you all. There is the National College Attainment Network. They have a training toolkit that has a lot of information. And then also there's the Federal Student Aid. So there's the hotline. Um, there is an issues alerts page that you can always check to see if there are any common issues with the application. Then we wanted to share our toolkit takeaways, which are short videos to our Cash for College resources. They are posted on our YouTube channel and you always have access to those. We'll also share that link with you all. And just save the date. So on Wednesday, December 3rd, for save the date for Cash for College, which is our navigating financial aid for immigrant families. And then also stay tuned for our first community conversation, which is coming soon. You can register for these at alabamapossible.org/events. We will promote our first community conversations via email, so be on the lookout for those.
Like CMR mentioned, we wanted to get y'all through the contributor portion of the FAFSA today. Hopefully, with the FAFSA being launched for close to a month and a half now, hopefully your students have gotten through their portion and now we're looking towards the parents doing their part. We will have 2 more webinars that are going to be related to the FAFSA. So we're going to have our December webinar covering financial aid for immigrant families. So that will touch on the FAFSA as well as other aid opportunities. And then because we also want to talk about the steps that happen after submitting a FAFSA, later on in the spring, we'll have a webinar touching on what steps students take after pressing submit in terms of reviewing their FAFSA submission summary, starting to receive aid offers from their colleges of interest, and then how to break down those aid offers to make the best financial decision for them among many other factors that I'm sure they're considering.
And just a reminder, our help desk line is open to you, students and families. Just call or text us at 334-316-6155, weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Especially if you have any questions, free feel to always stay connected with us as well. You can again call us or text us at 334-316-6155. You can also email us at algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org, or you can always visit our website at alabamagoestocollege.org to see if you have any questions. Feel free to call us or email us. So, um, just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Feel free to contact us with any questions. I know that y'all might need a little more support with the FAFSA, so we're here to support you. And we hope you have a great rest of your week and happy Thanksgiving.